Mr. Bishop.
Gentleman from Utah is recognized for 4 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This new bill and the amendments to the bill cover 177 different issues, 100 of which were obviously never discussed in the House before. I think it's important to note that the chairman of this committee, Mr. Rahal, the Democrat chairman, would not have done this. On each of the issues we actually did discuss, he went through regular order. There were hearings, there was a markup, they brought them individually to the floor for debate. This bill is in this condition not because there were Senate filibusters, for indeed some of these provisions have sat over in the Senate for as long as 2 years. This bill this concoction is here simply because the Senate failed to do their job. They did not hold hearings. They did not hold markups. They did not bring these issues to the floor in a regular manner. They lumped them all together. And now it is almost humorous to watch the contortions that the Democratic Party is going to go through to try and stifle any kind of debate or change in this bill. Originally, it came to us as a suspension in a situation in which it could not be amended. It could not have a motion to recommit, even though it actually did somehow get an amendment on it. Now it's coming back to us in the version of amendments to another Revolutionary War bill. You know, they actually had a Civil War monument battlefield bill over there with a Republican sponsor. They could have at least made those amendments to that bill and appeared bipartisan. But nonetheless, it is now here to us as the form of amendments with a closed rule, so we can't talk about them again. Now, one of the amendments that got into this bill, even though it wasn't actually supposed to get into the bill, dealt with hunting rights. Mr. Hastings of Washington talked about that issue very briefly. Hunting is not the same thing as the Second Amendment. And we have special interest that went before a maverick judge who ruled that 8 months of study is not the same thing as a quick review. It's not long enough. And therefore, that judge, in her own right, changed National Park Service policy that was designed to create consistency and created instead chaos. If the Park Service rule had been left in place without this judge playing around with it, all public lands under the Department of Interior would be treated the same way. The Bureau of Land Management does not prohibit against lawful concealed carry anywhere that it is allowed by states. The Forest Service doesn't do it either. Only the Park Service. And the Park Service changed their rule to make it in compliance with everything else and bring consistency. This judge changed it to chaos. Now, when we think about national parks, we think about Yellowstone and Grand Canyon and Zions and Bryce, but the National Park Service controls lands. They control roads and walkways. It is impossible to drive or jog without going in and out of Park Service land, which is never signed or notified, so no one really knows whether you're actually legally carrying a concealed weapon or not. You can be, and we have had people who have been arrested and trapped on Park Service land for carrying a concealed weapon, where if they had gone a couple of blocks further would be in Virginia territory where it was legal. That is ridiculous. That is silly. And yet, this provision is now done by judicial fiat, which means that the hunting amendment that was put in by the Democrats in the contortion of trying to get this bill through is now meaningless, and it is insignificant, which is why Representative Hastings of Washington has an amendment to reverse that decision and bring consistency back to the Department of Interior. This is the proper time. It's the proper venue. It should have been made in order. It would have solved the problem. I introduced another amendment in there to simply take 4 amendments that were passed by this House on the floor, bipartisan amendments, Republican and Democrat, that were voted in a bipartisan way and rejected by the Senate, simply because the Senate said they didn't have the time to review what the House did. These were short amendments. If you wrote small, you could put them all on one page. It is wrong that the Senate rejects the work of this floor. This side of the Capitol is just as important as that side of the Capitol. Can I have an additional 30 seconds?
Gentleman's recognized
Yes,
for
Madam
30
Speaker.
seconds.
Thank you. It is just as important as that side of the Capitol, and what we do should be respected. That amendment should have been put in order so that what the House passed and what the House said should be part of this particular bill, if indeed it's going to pass. There is no reason why we should have our amendments taken out and let the Senate simply do what it wants to, because the Senate failed to work in an orderly process while they had these bills for years and years. And I yield back.
Gentleman yields back his